Hi, we're going to look at how to deploy an AWS Elastic Beanstalk environment. First, we're going to set up the Elastic Beanstalk environment, and we're also going to set up AWS RDS instance. We're going to deploy our code onto the Elastic Beanstalk environment, and then we're going to set up some security group settings so that the Beanstalk excuse me, so that the Beanstalk environment will be able to communicate with the RDS instance. Let's get going. What you want to do is that you want to log into AWS, head over to Elastic Beanstalk, and you want to create an application, right? After you created a new application, you can create various environments for it. Right now, I already have an application, and I'm going to create another environment for it. I'm going to just call this environment basic CRUD training demo B. And I'm going to copy this URL over. All is good. I'm going to pick a PHP platform, and I'm going to deploy it with a sample application from the get-go. Let's see if there are any more options that we want to configure at the get-go. We want to change the capacity to load balance. We'll set the minimum instance to 1 and maximum instance to 4. We don't really care that much at this moment about which placement group it will be in. I mean what AZ is going to be in. Let's set CPU utilization to be the scaling trigger. Let's use average and let's use percentage. And let's let it scale up at about 50% utilization and scale down at about maybe 20% utilization. This means that whenever your instances exceed a CPU utilization on average of 50%, it's going to scale up by one instance, and whenever your CPU average utilization is below 20%, it's going to scale down by one instance. I'm going to save all of that. Everything looks great. You'll want to create a security group for your instance as well. What you could do is that we could call it training basic CRUD training demo B DB access. So this security group is mainly to allow the Elastic Beanstalk environment to be able to contact the RDS instance. So we're just going to create that for now. We'll need a description, and I think the name of the security group is good enough. You want to pick the right VPC that is going to be the same VPC that your EB instance is going to be in, as well as your RDS instance. You don't need any rules, you just have to create it. Then you head back over to your EB setup. You want to set it so that your instance will be using the right security group setting. So it's going to have a security group of basic training DB access. Yeah, so we're all set, and we can create the environment. Okay, so the Elastic Beanstalk environment is finally set up. Right now we're going to link it up to CLI, to the EB CLI. What we're going to do is that we're going to do EB init profile will demo. You want to link it up to your application. Okay, if you have any question about how to set up the profile, basically what you need to do is that I have already pre-set up the profile, but what you need to do is that you need to set up your profile if you haven't already done it by adding a profile like that. So it'll be like AWS configure profile will demo. And what you're going to do is that you're going to fill up your AWS access key and your secret key and your region name and your output format. And then you could do the above command, which is once again eb init will with a profile that you have already preset. Okay, so effectively we have done this, and we will be able to do things like eb list, and you will be able to see the environments that are up and running. So what we can do is that we can, yeah, we're basically in a good place. You probably want to check your branch that you're on, your git branch, and you kind of want to always make sure that the branch you're on is linked to the right environment. So in this instance, we got it already where we do where demo is linked to demo, the demo environment, right? If it's not linked, what you need to do is that you can do something like eb use basic crud training demo b to link it up. And you always want to link it up when you're on the right branch, right? So now this is all linked up and it's all cool. There's some things that we probably should get done. We probably want to deploy out the code, and we also want to set the Beanstalk environment to use the right constances. So let's deploy up the code first. eb deploy, and the code will be deploying. So it's just gonna spin for a while. A whole bunch of things going on. As you can see, I think the environment on the website has on the management console has changed to a deployment state as well. And we're just gonna let this run for a while. Okay, so while our Beanstalk environment is still running, I thought what we could do is that we could swing around this to RDS and to set up the RDS and save ourselves some time. We're gonna call this basic training demo B, and we're gonna set a master password to this. That is a rubbish password, but you should use a real useful password in the future if you're doing this for real. The DB instance size, you want to use something for free, so we're going to go down to free tier, and we're going to be like T2 micro, which is right. Use 20 GB of storage. That's perfectly fine for this toy database that we're setting up. Make sure it's in the right VPC, and make sure that it's publicly accessible if you're setting up for the first time, because you want to be able to connect in using SQL Pro and do whatever other setup activities that you want. You can set it to publicly accessible to no after you're done with any additional configurations, or if you're just going to configure it or no configuration required, you can just set it to no in the first place. Okay. Security groups is fine. Availability zone, we don't have a strong preference for that. We want to set up initial database with a name of basic crud demo. I'll just copy it in there, and you should always enable automatic backups, but in this instance I'm not going to do so, but please do so in real life. And yeah, and that's basically it. You can select a maintenance window for when you want your DB to be maintained. Usually I set it for 3 a.m. in the morning local time, but in this instance I don't really care because this is a demo, and I'm going to just set it up and tear it down in a bit. So we're just going to create the database and let that spin for a while as well, while we go back and check on how our Beanstalk environment is coming along. Okay, so it seems to have deployed the application, but as expected, uh, it's not connecting into a database because the database is still being created. So we're just gonna have to wait a little while more for this database to be created. Okay, so at this time, the demo database has been kind of set up, but it's still backing up. It's first backup, and that's fine. We're just gonna let it do its backup, but we can continue the rest of the demonstration. We can verify that you can verify that the database is indeed been set up properly because you can hit the database using this hostname URL. If you set it to publicly accessible, you can actually access the database, right? The test and the connection succeeded, and you can actually go in and database is there, except that there are no tables just yet. That's fine. We actually want this database URL to be set into our environment variables. Okay, everything else should be right, I believe, except for the base URL. Let's get this sorted, and the base URL should be this guy without the final slash and without the HTTP colon and double slash. Okay, so this is all the environment variables that needs to be set up for this application. You can set up the environment variables by putting it one by one into this place. So you could do like SSL mode, and HTTP only, and you could do them one by one, right? Like base URL and base URL. Yeah, but usually that's not how I would do it. Most of the time when you need to mess around with your environment variables, especially if you got to set a whole bunch of environment variables, you should go through the you should use the CLI, dump in the right command, which is eb set environment, set all the variables that you want to set, and just deploy it out. Okay, so it's just gonna roll for a while, and we're gonna go back to our training environment and see how things are coming along. Okay, so this is gonna spin for a while until everything is updated. Yep. Hello, welcome back. So basically what happened was that the environment deployed out. It went from severe to okay, and then after some time it went down from okay to severe again. If you hit the URL, what you'll find is that you're gonna hit 500 database error. And I guess the problem that's going on is that it's not able to connect to the database. So how do you rectify this is that you go to your RDS and you check the security group that your RDS is using. So it's using SGB90F, right? You go to the right security group, which is B90F, and you edit the security group to include the DB security group that we created just now, right? Then when you go to your Beanstalk environment, figure out what is the security group that they can be using, that they are using. So for in this case, it is the SG0B4000 security group that I need to add to my RDS security group. So on the inbound, right? So what you want to do is that you want to do this here. You want to pick the MySQL connection, and you want to do the 00400. No, what was it? Let's get that number again. SGB 0B4000. So let's do that. 0B4000. So that's the one. To allow basic training DB access. So you want to do this because if you were to use this one, which is the auto generated one and not the one that we created, what's going to happen is that it's when you do a shutdown of the system, it's going to shut down and fail because there's a dependency or the link to that RDS instance. So it's always better to create a separate one just for this purpose of allowing the environment to access the database. So now that we've made this change on the security group, when you come back to the endpoint and you refresh, you should see that this thing starts working. There are some other problems though, which is the static repo URL is wrong. So if you look at this URL and you look at this URL right here, you will realize that the static repo URL is wrong, and we probably need to update that. So it's demo and not demo B. So we're just going to update this static repo URL with the right value. Now I can do this over CLI as well. It's just a preference. Usually kind of like it depends on what you're trying to do, and you just find the right interface to do it. So we're just going to apply this. It's just going to deploy out, take a while to save all the changes. Alright, so finally we got this on green. The environment is perfect. If you click the URL, everything is beautiful. I think you probably can run migrate, and it'll migrate out the database, and you can see that the database will be then populated with the right values. Hang on, let me just get the RDS hostname. Test the connection, it's good, and you'll see that the database is now populated with some information, and you should be able to now go back to this panel and log in. Alright, and you're done. Congratulations, you've just set up a new Elastic Beanstalk environment.